welcome to today's meditation time. It is an honor that not only are you spending time with me, but you are choosing to spend time with yourself as well. And so I hope that you will just find a comfortable spot where you are. For many of us, it's a consistent spot. There's something really powerful about having the same place that you show up for your meditation time. It doesn't always work 100% of the time, but the times that you are able to show up in the same spot, it gives you some anchoring and some grounding and some stability, even in the midst of maybe an unstable or a bit of a chaotic day. There's something about arriving to that same consistent spot. So wherever you found yourself for these few moments that we have, I invite you to settle in. If you're lying down, just stretch out nice and long and allow the spine to lengthen. If you're seated, do the same. Spine lengthening, shoulders relaxing. And each of us in our space, let's begin to just notice the breath. As the eyes begin to gently close, just notice, what does the breath feel like? Whatever you were doing just before your meditation alert or alarm went off, see how that has influenced your breath. And as you're beginning to witness it, begin to be intentional about how the breath feels. And then maybe with your next inhale, begin to breathe just a bit slower, a bit more full and complete. And then exhaling out, letting it all go. And just notice how quickly we go from rushing and an alarm going off and arriving, and within just a few short breaths of intention, we return to this state of feeling calm and at ease. And so the last time that we were together, I shared that over these next several meditation times that we share, I'm going to cover this topic of these moral precepts of our yoga practice. And as most and many of us know, meditation is this wonderful limb of yoga, which means that it too is grounded in these moral precepts. And these moral precepts are all about how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. And we begin to learn those things within our personal lives. They help to inform our yoga practice and our meditation practice. It's hard to show up for meditation when we know that we're not treating ourselves very well, or when we know that we're not treating others in our lives very well. So as both of those things are beginning to happen consistently, these true parallel paths, all of a sudden everything starts to make a little more sense. And so for you just to sit where you are, continuing to breathe in and out, I want to bring us back to this idea or this concept in yoga called Ahimsa. And when you translate Ahimsa, it means non-violence. And I shared the other day, we all would quickly say to ourselves, check, I've got that one covered. But when you go deeper into this concept of Ahimsa, beyond just being non-violence, it's also this idea of not harming. Not harming. And it always reminds me of this ancient Chinese proverb of Lao Tzu when he said, if there is to be peace in the world, there has to be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in our cities, there has to be peace between neighbors. And if there is to be peace between neighbors, there has to be peace in our home. And if there is to be peace in our home, there must be peace within us. And so I want to just pause with just a small part of what he said and think about this idea of our neighbors. Some of us know our neighbors. We've lived next door to them. We've shared time and community space with them. And some of us have no idea who lives in these houses and these apartments next to ours. But nonetheless, they are our neighbors. Our neighbors are also the people that we interact with in our morning habits and schedules, where we get our coffee, the people that we pass on our way to work. All of these are our neighbors. And oftentimes, we tend to look, as human nature will cause us to do, at what's wrong or what needs to be fixed with these neighbors of ours. And so I'd like to give us all this real world example of just think of a time in your life when you've lived close or nearby someone and you didn't quite like the way that they kept their yard or the front of their house and how it looked as you drove along, headed toward your home. And there have probably been comments as you looked across this yard or across the way the grass was mowed or not, or how things were put away or not. And maybe there was some judgment. Maybe you didn't say it to anyone, you just thought it. But we tend to do that. We go through life, and these neighbors that are part of our path, we project our ideals of how things should be on their lives. And whether we realize it or not, we think that we know better for them. And if they would just do things the way that we see they should be done, everything would be fine. And it's such a small, seemingly inconsequential example. But it reminds me of the story of this man that walked along this path and he saw a monkey sitting in the tree holding a fish in his hand. And he's squeezing the fish and he's saying, "But I tried to save you from drowning. Why don't you appreciate it?" And in that silly little story, it's the idea the monkey thought he knew better. And he pulled this fish out of his environment and he applied his own ideals of what was right to this other creature. And ultimately he caused harm. So just like the monkey, y'all, we don't intend to be harmful in our thoughts about other people's lives in the way that we look at how they keep their yard or how they manage their children, or all those little things that we always seem to notice. But Ahimsa teaches us that there cannot be peace between neighbors until there is peace within ourselves. And oftentimes, we would rather look out at what's wrong with someone else than pause and think about how to begin to change or transform the things within us that need to be changed or transformed. It's much easier to look out at the neighbor who needs to mow his grass than to pause and think about what in our own life needs a shift. And so again, I know these are just small, silly examples, but the core of Ahimsa, the very first moral precept of the entire scope of what yoga is, tells us to do no harm. To do no harm. And so we've got to start with ourselves. We've got to stop, just like we do sitting here in meditation together on this regular, consistent schedule, and we begin to look inside of us. And we just ask the question, what inside of me needs to shift so that every day I feel peace and every day I see peace as I look out at the world? It sounds like a really tall order because it's so much easier to notice the yards that need to be mowed and the things that are broken and the fish that needs to be rescued from drowning. But what this practice teaches us is to pause and to look inside and think, how do I need to shift? What do I need to change? What do I need to release so that every single day I feel peace, and when I look out, I see peace? And as we make that our focus, we will be practicing Ahimsa. Because instead of noticing the messy yard or the disruptive children of our neighbor, instead, we'll think, how can I support these people in my path? How can I be a light and an example for them? As I lessen my criticism, how can I be this example of peace? Knowing that as there's peace in me, there will become peace between neighbors. And ultimately, like the proverb says, that is what leads to peace in the world. It's not up to a government to create it or foreign states to have conversations about it. It is up to us, one meditation practice at a time, to nurture, to ask the hard questions, and then to sit while we begin to develop this vision of peace in our lives. So I'd invite you, along with me, let's just sit for these next couple of minutes, asking the question, not worrying about answering it, just asking, what within me needs to shift so that every single day I feel peace, and when I look out, I see peace. Again, it's not the answers that matter, it is the fact that we're asking the question. So let's just pause together in the quiet. Let the question just hold the space where you are, or continue just to ask it to yourself, all the while continuing to breathe. In the Sanskrit language, we are given two incredibly powerful words that can serve as a reset when we stray from this idea of peace in our lives, of cultivating it and nurturing it. The first word is that primordial sound, this so basic of a vibration that all the other sounds come from it, and it's the word Om. And when you say the word Om, when you hear it, whether it's chanted or played or just said, it signifies, I want to be back at the beginning. All the things I've done to this point, I want to start fresh right now from this moment. And when you couple the word Om with the word Shanti, and in Sanskrit, Shanti means peace. It's like I want to have a reset. Whatever I've done, whatever meetings I've sat through, whatever conversations I've had, whatever discord I've experienced today, when I say the words Om, Shanti, 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 it's a cue for myself that I want to reset right here and now. I want to reset back to peace. Almost as if we're closing our eyes in that moment so that when we open them again, we feel peace and we see peace. So as we close out our time together, I just want to say those words and then pause and then say them one more time to end our practice, so that no matter what we've done, how many neighbors' yards we've critiqued, how many others' lives we've thought that we could fix, let's start fresh now with new eyes, grounded in the concept of Ahimsa, no harm. So let's take a deep breath in. And as we're exhaling, Om, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And a deep breath in. And as we're exhaling, Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste.